with every tick of the clock, we get closer to that critical moment that many Nigerians, and as a matter of fact, the rest of the world have been waiting for. And that is when Nigerians will select or pick or vote, or anyhow you want to consider it, to determine who will be the next president of Nigeria and governors at different states across the federation. Several issues continue to come up that demand urgent attention, particularly in ensuring that whoever that will become the president inherits a nation that is thriving. We will look into some of this with someone who understands what it means to keep the country on the path it should be. And he was the former president of the Nigerian Bar Association and a senior advocate of Nigeria, as a matter of fact, Olisa Agbakoba. Thank you so much for giving us your time to share your thoughts again. Now, let's begin with this. In 2003, you sought to be the president of Nigeria when you were the presidential candidate of the Green Party. And after that election, you have not said anything again in terms of offering yourself to serve Nigeria. Perhaps, would you want to share with us those things that had drained that passion from you of becoming the president of Nigeria?
Well, the actual truth was the main reason I did it was why Gani also did it. Recall at that time, there was the challenge of who can register a political party. And it was felt that INEC had the sole discretion. So I went to court, Gani went to court. Just that Gani's case went faster to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court then declared that every association has a right to be registered as a political party. That opened the space. So the real reason why I, together with my friends and associates, created the Green Association, as it was then called, was to open the political space. And having done so and gotten registered, then it just followed that I would be presidential candidate on the platform of the Green Party. Whether I was really interested is what I don't really know. But still, the question that you ask is relevant. To be a presidential candidate, you need a lot of resources. I mean, back then, maybe it was about 2-3 billion. Today, you're looking at about 20 billion. You have got to be a political animal. I'm not. You've got to be well structured. In other words, it's heavy lifting to run for, the presidency. So I just said to myself, this is not where I'm best qualified.
Okay, right. The 2022 budget we have in Nigeria now may be very difficult to implement.
Yes.
Except government borrows over 6.3 trillion naira to make up for the deficit.
Yeah.
As we speak, the debt profile of Nigeria is very close to 40 trillion already.
Yes.
Which is a bit alarming.
The debt profile to the debt to revenue is about 90%.
Fantastic. So, and it's a bit scary for
not a bit scary,
people.
Terribly scary.
Okay, so help us make sense of where Nigeria stands today in terms of its economic health.
Economic health, if you use it as medical health, Nigeria is terribly sick. Because all the vitals, like you do your blood pressure, your sugar levels, all of that for Nigeria, in terms of the economic status of itself, are all in terribly bad shape. They're all in red. So I think what needs to happen is that government needs to move away from borrowing for development. Because the money is borrowed not only to fund the budget, but to fund the budget for developmental programs. I think what government needs to do is shift to a policy of generating IGR for development. And why I think this is easy is because in studies I have done, there's a lot of money lying idle. It's just about using the right policy tools to access it. So if government's policy formulation isn't effective, then it will not realize that it can actually make income just by looking around. I referred the other day to a PwC report that shows Nigeria has about 900 billion in idle assets, dead assets. Now, that 900 billion will more than satisfy our requirements and would not need to borrow. Then if you look at trade, agriculture, solid minerals, the maritime sector, there's money.
Before we go too far from here,
Yeah.
you talked about 900 billion dead assets or idle assets.
Yes.
Many people may not really understand, what that means and perhaps where those capital and assets lie
Around the world.
around the world.
When Nigeria was big, remember when Nigeria was a state-owned, Nigeria had a lot of state-owned enterprises, MPA, Nigerian Airways, name it. They still have their houses around the world, empty. They should be sold.
Properties they had then.
Absolutely. Look at the one that is just within, our view. We can see it. The Federal Secretariat. That's worth about 150 billion. And I've always said that one, if sold, is empty. 30 years, nothing. Why can't they sell it? If you sell that one, it will build the Ibadan, Lagos road that government has gone to borrow. It will do the east-west road. So my point is that government should look inwards to generate IGR rather than borrow, because we have the resources. Maritime, it's a lot of money. If you implement the Cabotage Act, you will see money coming out. We have 25,000 foreign vessels in our waters. They should be replaced by Nigerians. And those Nigerians in trading coastally will generate the revenue that the government requires. So there's a lot of resources. Look at our solid mineral. A lot of it are line idle. Look at hydrocarbon. I don't understand why government sees only the barrel of crude. But there are about 36 other value chains in my field of services: banking, law, shipping, insurance. Of these 4 service sectors, no Nigerian is playing any role. Kachuku, once the minister for, what was it again?
Former Minister of State for Petroleum.
When he was general counsel of ExxonMobil, he said the yearly spend on legal services is $10 billion, but Nigerians don't take part in it. So if this country trade policy is all about open, so we're a dumping ground, then we're not going to grow. So if the government were to understand its policy challenges and should implement it better, it would be a very rich country. That's the point I'm making.
You mentioned concentrating on crude. Do you see that, feeling of let's get it peak, not being ready for long-term plans and, processes, explore the crude, take it abroad, make the money, and that's it? Can you tie it to that corruption tendencies that is always talked about in Nigeria? Because it appears that people across all lines of governance, not just at the federal government, state, and even the local government, are always looking out for what will fall, for them.
That's it. That's why policy is not well implemented, because of what can I get. So you find that the policy chain is weakened by self-interest. Otherwise, there are several little things that it's a no-brainer that I don't see why government should not get right. So corruption plays a massive role in the way government runs. So it's losing a lot of revenue. Another area where government really should have a rethink about what it's doing is, does government have the capacity to be a businessman? There's a lot of revenue lost, I'm telling you. Government has no capacity. You hear ministers at the FEC coming out and say, oh, contractor was awarded for this and that and that. I said, what does government to do with contracts? The private sector drives business. Government drives policy. Now, if government were to concentrate on policy, then you will have a higher value policy output, because that's where they're best at. But because government is also taking part in business, it is unable to do both effectively. Government's contribution to GDP is only 5%, which means that if government had zero contribution, we won't feel it. Or look at Apapa, for instance. Why the ports are not developing is because government does not have the type of resources. It will take about $1 trillion to fix Apapa ports, but they don't have the money. But if they pass a law, which is called the Port and Harbour Bill, it's been in Parliament for going to 13 years, then it will attract potential businessmen, foreign direct or local. And the government's own is to create the regulatory environment for the business to thrive. Now, because the ports are bad here, goods are diverted. 80% of the containers coming to the Central West African zone are for Nigeria. But we only have about 10%. The only time it went up was when President Buhari put a ban and closed the borders. Then the revenue of customs went up by about 12, 15 billion a day. So you can see the impact of trade policy on Nigeria. So my point is, an effective, well-formulated policy will give us the type of revenue that we're looking for.
When Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was the Minister of Finance, she talked so much about the ease of doing business. And some of those issues that were tackled then, activities of agencies, creating bottlenecks here and there, I'm not sure they are all sorted now. That even the last time you spoke on matters like this, you made reference to being able to secure title deed for property, how difficult it is.
Absolutely.
Tell us more on how sorting out the ease of doing business could help government in addressing the issue of revenue.
Because people want to go to where it's easy to do business. Why would I want to come to Nigeria if there are 32 steps to get a permit, or if the courts take 10 to 12 years to finish a case? So businessmen look at the environment and they say Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco, and they all make up their minds that Nigeria is a very difficult place. If you revamp the ease of doing business and make it a lot simpler, then you're going to get a lot more people wanting to come. And it will release capital too. The point you made about titling, if it takes an average of 5 to 6 years, even in Lagos, to get a title document, then a bank cannot give you credit. And if the banks don't give credit, it slows down business. So a policy that indexes the housing inventory to credit is missing. So we talk about, it is described as dead capital. So all the properties in Lagos, probably according to some estimates, again by PwC, is worth about $4.3 trillion. But it's not active. It's not useful. It's not playing a role in economic enterprise of Lagos. Why is it that the governor of Lagos State cannot create an implementation office so that land registries will be able to churn out titles as quickly as 24 hours? So if I have a certificate and I want to get a loan, I can get approval from the governor in 24 hours, so I can access capital from the banks. And it all adds up to the potential of Lagos as a smart city.
Okay, so much talk had also been made about diversifying the economy, and at each point it appears, one step forward, two step backwards. But recently, the government has made significant progress with rice farming, but that appears to be just a minute, very minute, insignificant percentage of what that diversification of the economy could be. Just in 5 years, Nigeria fled 1,200 trillion cubic feet of gas, whereas a country like Russia is a big player.
Absolutely, Gazprom
in the world with their gas.
Yeah.
What does this suggest? How do we address this diversification of the economy realistically to save Nigeria from the doom?
It goes back to the point I made about policy, the policy challenge. For instance, without being disrespectful to the Honorable Minister of Transport, I think in the context of how they see policy, is doing well. But can Minister Amechi really build our railways by jumping around the whole of Nigeria? No. So the policy ought to be, what do we need to get a national rail line in place? Once that is established, the execution is for others, not the minister. In that way, energy is conserved to the appropriate places. So if you talk about gas, then the issue would be, why is the gas master plan, which was well articulated back in 2009, why is it not getting the attention it ought to get. It's because government is doing too many things. It's doing policy, it's doing execution, it's doing regulatory process, it's also doing business. The refineries. What is government doing owning refineries? If the government had sold these 4 refineries on as is pricing, I can assure you they would have all been running. If Dangote could build a massive refinery, it shows if government were to say to people in that field of industry, anyone who wants to do like Dangote, we're happy to assist you. You'll have about 5 or 6 or 7 refineries. I don't understand how Nigeria will have crude, export it, just to import PMS. It's such a contradiction. So that is a policy challenge. So we really need to review our policy and be very clear what is the role of government. If you see what happens abroad, you don't see governments being involved in business, and it's a very important policy choice. Get out of business. But on the point you made about when the will is there, there'll be a result. The rice thing is a good example. So you see Governor Emefiele driving that rice process. Today we're self-sufficient. But that could have also been done in respect of every other thing on the matrix. Crude oil, the gas master plan, electricity. So some of the fundamental drivers of the economy, there are about 5 major growth drivers. If government had a policy to vigorously push all these growth drivers, this economy would be a massive economy.
Okay, perhaps we are setting an agenda for whoever that will emerge as the president by next year.
Yeah.
But you recently also said that the president Nigeria needs is a driver.
Yep.
You said that he must be a visionary leader who does not just understand the problem, but has the capacity of solving it.
Yeah.
Talk us through some of those qualities you think Nigerians should be looking out for, because the aspirants are already emerging, so that people will begin to ask those questions and look out for those qualities that will make up that kind of leader you think Nigeria needs.
So first would be a committed leader who is not distant from people. Our politicians tend to be distant from us. So you can see, even as bad as Mr. Trump was, but I could identify his kids, his family, because he's a human being. In our case, we don't see our political people in a humane way. We only see them with bigger borders. So I'd like to see a leader who I can see him pull his shirts up. I can see him walking to an aircraft, holding his grandchildren or kids. So, this man is like me. That's number one. Number two, I need to see a leader who can give hope. Now that we're transitioning from a very fragile, democracy, I need to hear a leader say, this is what I'm going to do. And one of the big things that a leader has to do, a presidential candidate, is to resolve this whole question of power devolution or restructure, whatever it's called, so that we can put some of these fault lines away. So that's on the political side. On the economic side, I need to hear a leader talk about how he can make Nigeria tap all the resources available. Cut borrowing, just like Okonjo-Iweala did, because we're getting to the danger mark, to the precipice where we'll fall off. So a leader who says, you know what? I've identified this, that. If I do this, that, it will have impact on unemployment, education. Education must be announced to be compulsory free for everyone at primary level. Those are the sorts of things. But a leader, especially who understands the challenge we have in respect of insecurity, because Nigeria is in low-grade civil war. There's war across all 6 zones. A leader who understands the economic issues and how to turn Nigeria around, and a leader who understands how to transition us into a strong political system. That's what I'll be looking for.
Okay, how do you relate this with the talk that is going on all the time about where the president comes from? Because we have been drawn into the turn-by-turn syndrome so deeply.
Yeah.
Can you relate this? Is it possible to go beyond this point and then discuss about what you're talking about?
If you look in the media, you guys in the media, you tend to only report this turn-by-turn thing. But just look very carefully. If you read the papers or watch the news, These guys, it's like we are in a theater, sitting, just like I remember myself going to a theater and watching Hamlet or any play. That's what they do. They don't realize that we, are, we exist. So they talk about, oh, it's going to be Southeast because it's Igbo. But they're not relating to Nigeria. I've never heard any political aspirant speak about the problems of Nigerians and what they're going through. So there's a massive disconnect. So I begin to wonder whether what they are really after is the interest of Nigerians or how they can get to power. Now, that needs to change. It needs to absolutely change so that this turn by turn thing can go down. The turn by turn zone thing is, yeah, because we are a diverse country. So you need to say, we've got to include everybody. But personally, I would not sacrifice merit for turn by turn. I would go for a leader who wants to be president, who clearly demonstrates to me that if he's there, he will make Nigeria a better place. And so the politicians ought to begin to listen more and be sensitive to what Nigerians are feeling. Nigerians today have no interest in PDP or APC, really. They have an interest in how they can get money to feed their kids, put them in school, and do all those things that, they need to do to survive. But the political class design a system for themselves, and when they get into power, they forget us. So really, I begin to wonder whether our votes count, because there's a disconnect. If our votes counted, then I think the political leaders would be talking to us now. I don't think the PDP, in all the conventions and working groups and whatever they've been doing, have ever mentioned the common man and their chat and their wahala, nor has APC. Yet they're going to an election in which they expect us to vote them. But in their discussions, they don't talk about us.
Okay. One of the issues that people did talk about, about the forthcoming election is the recent effort to amend the Electoral Act, where the power of INEC to determine how the election is going to be conducted appeared to be put on a trial, with the transmission of the result, whether it's going to be electronic or not. You were active in preparing the electoral reform blueprint after the 2007 flawed election. The president then admitted by himself that the election that brought him was flawed. You were active then. You and your team sat and went through all of
Yeah,
this.
that's the waste panel.
Yes. Tell me what you think. Tell us what you think about the role of INEC in conducting an election, in order to ensure that the credibility and the freeness of that election is sustained.
I had wished that INEC could have realized the huge powers it has been given as an electoral empire. National Assembly cannot be. Because National Assembly is an interested party. So it's like in a boxing match. So one boxer has the possibility of writing the rules rather than the referee. So you ask yourself, between the boxer who is participating in the contest and the referee, who will decide what? So the boxer here refers to INEC, to the
National Assembly.
National Assembly, because they are actors. They are taking part in the process. Yeah, they are writing the rules in which they will take part. Clearly, they will write it to their advantage. So one of the biggest challenges is INEC's, I don't know whether it's failure or they just don't see it. They ought to be able to assert themselves and say, no, National Assembly, it is not in your place to write these rules. We will write the rules that will make the process independent, fair, and transparent. If they did that, things will change. So that dichotomy of distribution of powers between the NAS, who in my view exercise those powers unconstitutionally, and the INEC that have failed to rise to their constitutional responsibility is the reason why our elections are always, challenged.
Okay, before I let you go, we are counting down now in months before the election, and a lot of people do not have confidence in the process, perhaps interpreting some of these issues that we have been discussing and all of that. What's your message to Nigerian electorate? Some people believe that their votes do not count, but some others reason that if your votes do not count, politicians will not be bribing for people to vote. What's your message that will inspire that hope for people to get involved and committed as we get closer to the election?
So, I don't want to use Chelsea and Arsenal. People always talk about foreign teams, but Eimba and what? Eimba and
3SC.
And what?
3SC or
3SC.
Rivers United.
So, the NFF announces a new structure, makes clear that this process will be transparent, and any match that is played and the scores are known that it is. But if we all know that these two teams playing, the rules have been written, the goals have been, the referee has been bribed, then I said, what am I going to watch? So the critical point is for INEC to reassure us that our votes will count. That's the only way. Once that is done, then Nigerians will come out in droves, because I can tell you, Nigerians are dissatisfied with the political elite completely. But because they are so dispossessed, a man who is hungry, is he going to start talking? He just, on that election day, he's lying on his bed. INEC must give us confidence that if I go and stand in that line, the results at the end of the day will be the will of the people, so that the results are, I can follow it transparently, and I can see it on the board. Electronic transmission is crucial. So nobody is controlling it. Nobody. The entire thing is electronic. Then I think that will ginger the will of Nigerians to go and vote. Whether they take money or not, they will do the right thing by voting who they think. The second thing now is to have a capable person, because all too often we have people who really don't deserve to be local government chairmen come out to want to run as president. And because the choices are narrow, so Nigerians just go to collect money and vote. But if these two things happen, INEC takes the opportunity to be a real constitutional regulator of the electoral process and assures us that our votes will count. And we see somebody, to be quite honest with you now, looking around. I'm still looking. I'm still searching. But I do hope that, somebody can emerge. I remember sitting in my office and they said that Biola was coming. Excitement. I haven't seen that.
Okay, we still keep hope alive and hope that as we count down, a lot of people, including you, will find reason to trust the process that will give us the next president and leaders at different levels in the country. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your experience with us. We appreciate it a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to you that watched, we are grateful that you did. Let's do it again. Thank you for watching.